Welcome to the House on Fire podcast. Our aim is to light a fire for Jesus in the homes of those who listen through encouragement and equipping. Let's partner together to advance the gospel in the next generation. I am your host, Lucas Jackson, and I am passionate about seeing more people on fire for Jesus. When you listen to the House on Fire podcast, you'll hear from people you can rub shoulders with every week at Bethel Church, because all of our guests are from our church family. These are people striving to love God, love others, and to serve the world. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode. And today we have Angela on. Angela, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Thanks.
How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks for coming on and chatting it up.
Thank you.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Okay, well, I'm originally from Fargo. I was born here. The majority of my family lives in or around Fargo. I have 11 children through adoption, ranging in age from 29 is my oldest to 3.5 is my youngest.
Yeah.
And I also have a 8-year-old granddaughter.
Okay.
Who lovingly refers to me as Grams. That's
awesome.
my name.
That's awesome.
And I've been a foster parent for the last 20 years now. So, and that is how my kids came to me, was through the foster care system.
Yeah, that's awesome. And all in the area, right? Or like through the foster system here in this area?
Yes. Yep. Through here. A couple of my kids were born different places outside of the state. But yes, through the foster care system here in North Dakota.
Yeah, awesome. And what worship service do you normally, and campus do you normally attend?
We attend Bethel here in Fargo, and typically the 9:00 service during the school year. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Are you involved in a life group, or you got a group of ladies that you hang out with on a consistent basis? I had been like before, kind of before all of my kids. It's a little trickier now with all that I kind of juggle. Yeah. But actually my older girls, they really are involved in the church, and they've helped with Sunday school and with Wednesday night Bethel kids, Awana, VBS, that type of stuff. So I love that they're involved. Yeah.
It's great to see them around. It's great.
Thanks.
When did you become a believer?
I think I've always believed in God and had somewhat of a faith. We grew up going to church. I was raised Catholic, but I think for me personally, it was in 1999. I remember pretty clearly that I kind of chose it for myself, and my family and I had been attending a play at the church that I had sometimes been attending, Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. And I just remember that being a very powerful experience. And that night I went up for the altar call and gave my life to the Lord, and kind of made that commitment there. Yeah.
How old were you at that time?
At that time I probably would have been like my mid-20s, I would say.
Yeah.
From there, I had prayed the prayer, and it was such a powerful experience, but I guess leaving there, I was just kind of left with, I didn't know really what it meant to live a Christian life. Yeah. And, it was kind of something where I just felt like I had one leg on each side of the fence, kind of. And I think I was expecting more to fit God into the life that I had already kind of made, instead of really making that change. And that would come later, actually, that very pivotal time. But back during that time, I guess I can look back now and see that there was many things happening already kind of in the works that God was doing that would lead me to that time, and ultimately to what I ended up doing in foster care. Yeah. So.
No, that's awesome. Where did the desire for foster adoption come from?
So after I'd given my life to the Lord, and I had accepted him as my personal savior. Kind of like there was things that started to happen that I kind of felt were setbacks, but really ultimately they were kind of setups to the next thing. And one of the pivotal things was I had experienced an apartment fire in the building that I lived in. A fire was intentionally started, and everybody in the apartment had to evacuate. We all had to move and leave. And it was a big apartment building.
Man.
And when I left there, I thankfully was able to go stay with my mom and dad for some time. And during that time, my mom is, she's retired now, but she was a child protection worker for Cass County.
Really?
Yes. And so sleeping on their couch, one night she was on call and she got a call of a little boy that had been left in in a hotel in West Fargo. And she went and picked him up and she brought him back to the house. He was about 2 years old. And I remember just kind of laying on the couch, listening to my mom calling random numbers, of foster parents, trying to get somebody to take this little guy. And I just remember kind of looking at him just all rolled up in a ball, sitting in the chair there. And he was sleeping and he was all dirty and his diaper was pretty soiled. And, I kept hearing my mom say, well, thanks, and then she'd hang up and she'd dial another number, trying to find somebody to take this little guy. And I just remember my heart kind of breaking to that.
Man.
And, that was pretty eye-opening to me. And then there was another time where she had gotten a call to meet the police down at the emergency room when that was downtown at Sanford. And she had asked me to go with her that night because it was kind of in the middle of the night. And sometimes she'd get a little scared to kind of go out on calls on her own. So I asked if she wanted me to come with, and she was open to that. So we went, and it was a brother and sister that she ended up picking up. And they're again having to call and find a foster parent to take these two little ones in. And that was kind of traumatic because they had witnessed their mom getting beat up. And so here you're kind of taking these kids, you're a stranger. They had to just experience this traumatic thing,
Yeah.
And the foster home that she found for them was out of town. And so we had to make the drive with the kids. And then you're just, dropping them off again at another stranger's. You were a stranger and then another stranger.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling so bad for these kids, kind of tough seeing all that. So I think kind of that experience and, that experience, I think, really penetrated my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have probably had that experience if your house or your apartment the whole building didn't catch on fire. So
that's exactly right. Because you can be told about things, but when you're actually witnessing it and seeing the kids with your own eyes, it's very eye-opening.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree. What did you believe your purpose in life was, and how did you know that it was real? As you're figuring all this stuff out and probably thinking like, okay, is this the right thing to do? Is this not? All those things.
Yeah. Well, so after that fire in our building, and we were out for a couple of months, and I say we because it was myself. I had rented one apartment, but there was another couple. That had lived in the building that I had never met before. And they too wanted to return to the building after it was all fixed up and stuff. So it after a few months, when we could finally get back in, I met this couple that they took on the management position.
Okay.
Once we came back into the building. And, during that time of kind of trying to figure everything out, what it meant to kind of have God in my life, there was a lot of things that kind of took place that, were kind of tough for me in my life. But, I started to kind of see signs throughout. And I remember listening to Charles Stanley one morning on the radio, and he talked about how your purpose in life will be something that evokes you an emotion in you and causes you to take action. And that really kind of stuck with me, because that really got my mind kind of thinking, what is that within me, within myself, that really, anytime that I hear about it or I see something about it, that maybe, it strikes an emotion with me. And I kind of recall that with, kind of that experience with staying at my mom and dad's and that type of thing. But there was actually a job that I had got to. I had applied for this job as a food service coordinator at a local treatment facility here in town for kids ages 12 to 18. And I remember applying for this job, and it was the night before the applications. It was going to be closed out, and I needed a resume and a cover letter. And I had never done anything like that before at all. And so it's like the night before, and I'm really thinking, gosh, I could really see myself doing a job like this. And then kind of a bonus, you got to work with younger kids, which, I did feel within me was kind of something that I would enjoy. So here the night before, I'm scrambling, trying to get this letter and this resume all made up. And I finally kind of put something together that I was actually kind of proud of.
Yeah.
And the next morning I went and dropped it off, and I just kind of prayed for the best. Well, a couple of days later, I got called for an interview, and I set that all up, and I went in, and it was pretty intimidating. I had 4 ladies sitting there kind of asking me questions and stuff. And that too was a new experience for me at that time. Well, a few days passed then, and they called and they offered me the job, and I was shocked actually. And after I had started the job and been there for a little while, one of the gals that had interviewed me, her and I were in the hallway talking one day, and I probably shouldn't have said this, but I said, I still can't believe I got the job. And she said to me, I think I had asked, I said, wasn't there like other people that applied for the job?
Yeah.
Like I self-doubt. And she said, actually, it was you and about 8 other people that applied for the job. And she said, I'll be honest with you, you were the least qualified, but we really liked your personality.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a God moment.
Yeah.
And then kind of putting the pieces together years later, and I look back on that, and it was actually that job that catapulted me into doing foster care, because one of the other gals that worked there, she had saw the interaction between the kids and I, that the kids always really enjoyed coming into the kitchen with me. And I really enjoyed when they came and hung out with me too.
Yeah.
And she had said to me one day, she said, have you ever thought about being a foster parent? And I'm like, no, I never have. And she said, well, I'm a foster parent. She told me the agency that she was with. And she said, I just think that you'd make a great foster parent. And then from there, I went home and I talked to my mom about it. And I said, do you think that you could see me doing something like this? And she said, I think you'd be great at it.
Yeah.
And from there, I started the process of becoming licensed.
And how long were you working there before this interaction took place?
Gosh, I was probably working there, I would say, for maybe, 6 months.
Okay. Yeah.
6-8 months, somewhere along there.
Yeah.
And so I think had it not been for that job and somebody kind of recognizing something in me, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was all perfect timing too. I think really at that time in my life, I needed kind of like a breakthrough. I needed, I always feel like I was longing for my purpose and kind of my calling, but just never really sure how to obtain that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does. Were there any like self-doubts that you had at that time? Like you've got this coworker that sees this in you and you see your love for the kids, but what kind of things are maybe going on in your mind where you're like, I don't know if I should do this? Well, and maybe there wasn't those things, but
there was that time because after I had spent months getting licensed, and it's a pretty intimate thing, like you're having to meet with the worker.
Oh, yeah.
They know you probably more so than your own family.
It is a little
you
scary.
have to share a lot of kind of personal things, experiences that maybe you went through, how you would parent. Well, I had no clue because I had never parented before.
Yeah.
So it was a little unique with me too. So after I'd gone through the process, I remember saying to them, hey, I think I just kind of want to start off a little easy. Maybe I'm just doing respite for other foster parents.
Which is, as you know, is a huge need. It's a huge need.
Yeah, there's a huge need for that. So, I mean, I felt like that was a pretty valuable contribution, and maybe just to get my feet a little wet. But they were really in need of foster homes at that time. So they said, well, hey, we just got this family of 8 siblings that came in, and we are unable to place them all in the same foster home, and we have to split them up. And they had asked me if I would take one of the little boys. He was 9 years old at that time. And so, I mean, I was scared. I was nervous. I kind of had all the emotions, but I agreed. And he was such a great little boy. I'm very fortunate that for my first ever placement that he was as great as he was.
Yeah.
But honestly, I was really battling selfishness. I had him in my home and I knew I was doing something good. He would go to school and tell his teachers about his room and, all the toys that, I had there for him. This little guy had lived with his siblings and his dad had just found like some abandoned house, like out in the country. And it was all these little kids like sharing one bed together, and he would just tell me about how scared he always kind of felt. And that just really guilted me. But I couldn't move past this selfishness within me too, that I kind of felt a little trapped by all of this. Because, when you start doing foster care and you get a child into your home, you don't know how long they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And, here I was a young woman and, still kind of battling being on the fence with my faith and a lot of different things. And it was really hard for me. And I found myself a lot of times going into the bathroom and turning on the fan and just kind of crying, like, just feeling like maybe it was too overwhelming for me. And now I can look back and say that God kind of knew that for me too.
Yeah, for sure.
And Rodney ended up being with me for about 4 weeks. And then the courts sent all the kids back home, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but there was a part of my heart that was kind of relieved. I know that sounds kind of sad to say, but that's kind of how I felt. And after he left, I just really thought, I don't know if this is for me. It's really hard. You have a lot of people that you got to check in with. There's a lot of accountability.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't sure if I was there yet with it. And so after this little guy left, I just decided, hey, this isn't for me. I let my license lapse and I just kind of moved on from there. But then a couple years later, I had a pretty traumatic event that happened that would ultimately kind of lead me back to fostering.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we've had one short little situation where we fostered twins, and I totally understand the component of the
Did you feel some of that same stuff?
The relief component.
Yeah.
And ours was a very short experience. And so, we had like 13-month-old twins for a few months. And, the relief that we felt when they left was good and very like sinful and selfish all at the same time.
Did you feel kind of like some, what's the word? Guilt. Did you feel guilt for kind of feeling that way?
Yes. Yeah. And my wife and I weren't fully on the same page with it all. I've due to my background, handling crazy things is not a big deal.
Yeah.
They're as big of a deal, but my wife grew up in a great Christian family and things weren't broken and there wasn't ever screaming and yelling, and all just, the chaos that I experienced a lot. So that was like not as foreign.
Yeah.
And so when, they cried like 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so that was, and I left every day and went to work, and came back. And so, I remember, as you were talking, I was a complete coward. The day CPS came pick the kids up, I wasn't there.
Really?
I was like, I can't be here.
Yeah.
And so that was looking back.
And, I think it's good to kind of share that because, then I think that it makes other people feel like they're not alone in feeling those same things. And it doesn't make you a bad person. And, but it is really kind of like a culture shock. I kind of attest it to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, taking in somebody else's child who is broken and, they have needs on top of kind of our own needs or our own family. And it was just kind of a eye-opening experience, I think, for me that very first time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Although I was very blessed because like I said, the little guy that I had was just so wonderful.
Yeah.
So, and then after, Rodney left and, it was about in 2003. I think everything just kind of came to a head with me living on both sides of the fence. And I had gone out one night with some friends and later that night I was dropped off at my place and I had an extreme amount of alcohol to drink that night. And I found myself on the bathroom floor, literally begging God for my life. I knew in my mind that I had taken things way too far.
Yeah.
And in that begging of God to save my life, I promised him that if he got me through it, I would turn my life around. I would live solely for him. I was done with kind of all of this stuff. And 3 days later, when I was able to get up off the bathroom floor and actually speak a word, because I couldn't speak nothing, I couldn't move. And I laid there just thinking, this is it. My mom's going to find me here and it's all going to be over. And after a couple days when things start turning around and I was able to get up, it was coming towards the weekend. And I knew what that meant for me kind of in my life. The friends would be calling, where are we going? Where are we going to party at? That type of thing. And I knew what God had just saved me from. Yeah. I took it very seriously and I was overcome with just thankfulness, but just like, now what? Now, where do I go from here? And I found myself just kind of aimlessly driving around thinking about my life and kind of crying and just all these things. And I found myself driving past the church that I would sometimes attend with my mom. And it was a Friday night, about 7 or so o'clock. And I thought, I looked at the parking lot and the parking lot was packed full of cars. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't care if there's a funeral going on there. I just felt like I needed to be close to the Lord. And there was a parking spot right in the front. I parked my car. I had all this confidence until I was about ready to reach for the door. And then the enemy kind of set in. And it was, what are you doing here? You don't belong here, And somehow I mustered up the strength to pull that door open despite kind of what I was feeling at that exact time. And as soon as I opened up the door, my aunt was standing there. And she had attended church there too. And she kind of looked at me like big eyes, surprised. And she's like, what are you doing here? I had no idea what I was doing there. I had no idea what was going on.
In retrospect, it's probably not the thing. Yeah. And maybe you should say like, hey, we're glad you're here. Not no like, kidding. Why are you here? Anyway.
Well, I think she was so shocked because it's not like I was a regular attender, wasn't used to seeing me, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Especially at church. So anyway, I had no idea what I was doing there. And before I could even say anything, she said to me, go in, Uncle Dale's sitting right in the back. Go sit down. I'll be there in just a minute. And she kind of ushered me in without me even really being able to think about anything. Yeah. And as I sit there, I'm just kind of looking around all these people. I still have no idea like what's going on, other than my aunt had asked me, "Are you here for the speaker?" And I thought, speaker? I have no idea. Yeah, I guess. And so I sit down, and there was an evangelist speaking that weekend at our church. His name was Stephen Hill. And the way he presented the gospel and just how he spoke was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. He literally stood up on the stage, and he had chains, and he said that, we bind ourselves to Satan by our sin. And he talked a lot about like cleaning house, and not like cleaning where you're sweeping and vacuuming, that type of thing, but cleaning house as far as getting rid of the things that keep you from God, the music that you listen to, the TV that, the things on TV that you watch, and like all these things. And I had never heard anybody talk like that before. And I sat there and I listened to the whole thing. And when they gave an altar call at the end, I didn't walk. I ran. I ran. It was like everything that I needed to hear. And it was actually somebody kind of telling me what I needed to do in my own life to get close to God.
Yeah.
And it set me on a whole new path, a whole new mindset. And then from there, I started attending classes. I was going to church regularly. I read my Bible from beginning to end and continued to do so. I just wanted to immerse myself in God, the one who saved me, who saved me from this horrible experience that I had. And it was through that time then, remembering like Charles Stanley and what he had said about your purpose in life. And I just told God straight up, like I would talk to him, and I would just say, just show me what my purpose is. If you just show me, if I can just know for certain what my purpose is, I'll do it. Whatever it is, I'll do whatever you say. And next thing I know, I'd turn on the radio and there'd be some story about adoption. I'd look up driving down the highway and there'd be a billboard sign, for doing foster care. All these things started to happen. And it was like my eyes for the first time really started to see it and put the puzzle pieces together. And that was so cool to me. And then it was one day, I just kind of like, I'm seeing all of this kind of come together. And I stopped one day. I was in my apartment and I said out loud, but God, what if I want to go hang out with my friends? Again, that selfishness kind of seeped out of me. And I heard a voice say to me, if you give up your life for me, I will give you life. And I believed it. And from there, I went and made the call back to the agency that I had been a foster parent before in, that I had gotten licensed in. And the first thing that they said to me after I said my name was, where have you been? Like, whatever happened to you? It was just kind of like you disappeared. And they said, what's going on in your life? So much had gone on in my life since that first time. And I just kind of shared a little bit that during my time where I wanted to get close to God, I had sold off the majority of the stuff in my apartment. Like I cleaned house. When he said to clean house, I cleaned house. I sold most of my stuff. I just wanted to get back to a very small space with God and build kind of from there. That's the calling. That's the feeling that I kind of felt. And so I went from a 2-bedroom apartment to an efficiency, which I was really appreciative for that time. But they said, how soon can you be in a 2-bedroom apartment? Because we have the perfect little girl for you. And it was that apartment fire that I had met, my friends, Luke and Sandy, who went on to become the apartment managers. I called them up and I said, hey, listen, I'm wanting to do foster care. Do you have an apartment open? They said, Angie, we have one open. Come on. They said, come on over. You can have it. You can take it. And I immediately got all settled in and moved in from there. And it was probably about a month later, which was really kind of a blessing too, because my daughter, Josephine, my oldest daughter, she was the perfect little girl, by the way. And her teacher had actually been keeping her until they found a placement for her. And that too was really such a blessing. But I got all settled and
Yeah.
Josephine came to live with me. And then from there, it was just one thing after another. Everything started happening so fast, almost as if like God really does know us. It's like so crazy, because had things really moved at a slower pace, I think I would have been so in my mind. I would have at some point stopped things or like paused.
Yeah.
Because things happen so fast, I didn't really have time. And it was almost like this feeling of just sit back and enjoy the ride. Like that's kind of what I felt like God was kind of telling me. And now after 20 years and 11 kids later, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
You mentioned respite. So
Yes.
You and I obviously know what that term is, but for
Yes.
somebody listening who isn't aware, what is respite?
Okay, so respite is where you would basically babysit, for lack of better words, a child that was already in a full-time placement.
Yeah.
So they have full-time foster parents, but maybe they're going out of town. Maybe something came up. Maybe they just need a break. You know, foster parent and the kid maybe the child needs a break.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just a very temporary type thing, but you still have to be licensed in order to do it.
Oh yes, you got to hop through a few hoops to do that.
You do. So yeah. So, and we've done a lot of that. Our family in between kind of full-time placements, our family has been very available to do that for a lot of kids. Yeah. Probably the majority of my kids that I haven't adopted a lot of them have been respite kids. Yeah. So, which is a great way to kind of get in there and get your feet wet with it and just really kind of see. However, a lot of the kids, you know, behave really well in respite, you know, they do pretty well, kind of like temporary. Yeah. And so maybe you're not seeing a lot of the same issues you would, and, you know, if you were a full-time foster parent, but still it's a great way just to get exposed. I feel.
Yeah. And even in our experience, it was kind of I would start telling people, I don't need your money. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you keep praying. Yes, please keep praying, but I need you to get certified so you can give my wife a break. No, that was my phrase. Like I need, So people, hey, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need?
And sometimes that has actually happened where like family members who get to know the child pretty well will go on to kind of do that. And that is nice. Yeah, when they can step in to be that support like that, because it is so needed. Foster homes, but respite homes too.
Yes, because as you know, raising your own kids is different than somebody, because technically they belong to somebody else.
That's right.
So I just think of, the Schmidlins, Allison and Chris, if they brought Gunnar over, well, I have to, that's their kid.
Yes.
So I can't just
do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So like if you have a trampoline in your backyard, you technically need to get permission from their custodian for them to even bounce on that thing. Yes. Probably even look at that thing. I don't know.
Well, and and if, again, if this made up example, if Gunnar came over, I'd probably call Chris out, hey, can he hop on the trampoline, or hey, can he ride the dirt bike? I'm just not going to just, treat them like my own kid.
Or if you're going to go out of town and take him with you.
We're going to South Dakota.
You'd probably want to let them know. So you are very much accountable to that custodian.
Yes. Very much
child. So funny. But that's pretty much the gist of respite.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not, I never want to say that it's a break, respite is for the foster parents, because a lot of times too, it can actually be for the child themselves, that maybe they just need a break from the family that they're in, to just keep going on and for it to be a positive. Because I mean, ultimately the goal is that until a child can be reunified, they want them to be stable in the family that they're in. So if that means that the family needs a break or the child needs a break for that to be maintained, then that is something that they're more than willing to do, the workers.
Yeah. And it's usually, we did it in Texas, some training, some paperwork. And I guess the training depends on if you can do 4 to 8 hours or overnight. I think there is more training to be a respite for overnight. At least that's how it was in Texas.
Really interesting.
So there was like levels to it, I guess. So anyway.
Now, I don't recall that being the case with the agency that I was with, but yeah, I'm sure from state to state, it varies greatly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your life experiences prepare you for this journey?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, honestly, I never had like any special talents in my life or anything. It's not like I thought, oh, I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to be an actor. Like none of this. It, you know, basically all my experiences from kind of childhood all the way up, you know, I had gone through things in my life that were similar to that of foster kids.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is mine were to a much lesser degree. Obviously, you know, I wasn't taken from my parents, but I knew the pain of a lot of hurt, like things that had happened to me. They were painful and they were hurtful. And then when I started getting kids into my home and I knew their stories and what they had gone through, and I see the resilience in these kids and their ability to still love despite what they had gone through and trust and forgive and all this stuff. It kind of put my pain into perspective a little bit, where it was like, wow. And I thought I had it bad. That was kind of my mindset, you know? And so I really think it kind of helped me in that way. But honestly, if I wouldn't have gone through what I did, I don't think I ever could have been the parent that I am now to them, because they needed me to go through those experiences to be the mother that I am to them today.
Yeah.
And so now I see value in it. And there again, it's just another thing that I think, wow, God, you really it was really orchestrated in such a way that it really prepared me for what my calling was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of some desires, some expectations that you had going into it. And then I'm assuming there were times where it was like, okay, this is not how I envisioned it actually being.
Yeah.
Was that hard to kind of get over that hump a little bit? Or was it where you were able to shift your mindset and expectations and kind of work through it?
Well, my desire was that I was just always going to provide a safe environment for the kids that would come into my home. That was my desire to do that. I guess realistically, I didn't realize how messy that could sometimes be.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure maybe you experienced that too, but it's not always, I mean, it's very much, in my opinion, a commitment. You're committing and, you know, it's an investment. And some days the stock market looks really good and other days it looks really bad, but you don't just go and pull your money out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was on the days when things were really tough that I kind of had to do some self-talk. You know, I had to kind of sneak away to my room and maybe let out a good cry or two.
Yeah.
And then go in to kind of clean up the mess. Now, whether that was a physical mess or that was an emotional breakdown that was happening on the living room floor, God kind of like gave me the strength to kind of do that, because the importance of the work that we do, it's worth it.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth it. And when you kind of see the fruit of the work that you've put in, when you get a child and they're coming to you one way, okay. Whether that's like outwardly appearance wise, doesn't look all that great, or there's a lot kind of going in the inside that you're able to kind of work through.
Yeah.
Once you start to see the fruit of that and what you're pouring in and doing for them, it's like, wow, I can do this. I can make a difference. And that always encouraged me then when the next one came. You know, whatever the little rewards were with the one, I kind of always took in then to the next one. Like, hey, we can do that again, you know? And maybe they're small little things, but even small things add up to big things.
Yes. So at what age did you get your first little one? And let's just kind of like, how did the progression go and then, because obviously some of them are now yours, you adopted.
Oh, yeah.
So which I don't know if now my limited experience, I've seen a lot of folks foster.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of folks adopt, but not on the level of aggressiveness that you have.
Oh, aggressiveness.
Meaning there's more than a few running around here,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that is right. Well, when I first got licensed, when I first got the little guy that I talked about, I was 27 years old.
Okay.
When I came back to it after really feeling like, hey, this is where God needed to me. And mind you, I just want to back up and say that time with Rodney, when I had him, I felt like kind of like a loser. I felt like, wow, I had made a commitment. Like I had walked this walk to get licensed. And then here, like I just let it go. But if it wasn't for that time that I had gotten licensed when I was 27, I never would have been able to move as fast when it came to Josephine 2 years later, because they ended up taking my home study, and all I had to do was go and do a background check. They just forwarded all my paperwork.
Oh, wow.
And that's what catapulted me into like when God really did place it on my heart to get back into it. That experience, I needed that. And so that too made me feel like, wow, even in that short little stint, that was kind of part of the plan too, you know? So I get Josephine, and honestly, I think of this kind of quite often, and I'm even shocked myself, but within 10 months, like that's not very long. It's not even a year. I had gone from living in an efficiency apartment, being a single woman, just living on my own, doing my own thing, to having 2 kids and having that weren't even biologically related, and on my way to adopting them and having bought my first ever home.
Wow.
So a lot really happened fast.
And what chunk of time is that? Is that a 2-year period, give or take, or longer?
So when I got Josephine, she was my first one.
As in that you adopted?
Oh, that I adopted. Okay, so Josephine and Samantha are my 2 oldest.
Sorry, as in when you say she was the first one, like she's the first one you adopted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Josephine and Samantha, my first 2 were adopted together.
Gotcha.
Even though they were from different families.
Oh, okay.
Their courses kind of lined up where I had Josephine, and from the moment I saw her, this is like taboo. You don't do this when you're a foster parent. But I just thought, oh my gosh, if I could keep her. Oh, she was just the cutest little thing. And my heart just like connected with her. Yeah. And reunification was the goal with her. Yeah. And then all the while, while I have Josephine, there's a custodian that I find out that is wanting to place another little girl with me. And my path worker, there can kind of sometimes be a lot of workers involved, but she was like, no, I think Angie's fine. I think she has her hands full with what she has. And I didn't really kind of have a choice in things. And but I thought that's fine. I was content with one. Well, that path worker ended up, she quit and went to another job. And when I got my next worker, she said, hey, listen, this custodian keeps calling. She thinks that you'd be the perfect person for this little girl on her caseload. And I got my daughter Samantha then. And Samantha's case was, they were already looking for an adoptive home at that point. So Josephine's path and Samantha's path, although very different circumstances, very different. It kind of just came on the road together where when we talked about adoption, and I knew that was going to be the case with Josephine and Samantha, that Samantha was 5, 6 years old, and she just said, Mom, can we become a family on the same day? And I was like, that's a great idea. I love that. Yeah. So we did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that kind of, and after I adopted Josephine and Samantha, I thought, as a little girl, I had always dreamed of adopting. Like, this has just always kind of been in me. I never thought foster care would be the way in which I would do it. Yeah. But adoption to me was always such a special thing. Like, I would watch TV shows. I don't know if you remember Webster, Different Strokes. No. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Somebody listening has to know those 2 shows. Anyway, they had kids through adoption. Okay. And I just remember I loved watching shows like that. Yeah. And, so yeah, kind of, I don't know where I was leading with this, but anyway, it's just always kind of been a part of me. And I thought once I adopted them, that was kind of it. you know, like, hey, my dream came true. This is it, you know? And then they said, hey, we got this other little girl. She's needing a home. And I'm thinking in my head, well, that's okay. Yeah, I guess I could still like foster.
Yeah.
You know, I never really thought about that. And then when her case, then she couldn't be reunified with her mom.
Yeah.
There was no other family to be found. Then they came and, you know, the worker came and asked, you know, would you ever consider adopting?
Yeah.
And there was that ping of selfishness again. And I remember thinking, I'm single. Like, I've already adopted 2 kids. What if I ever want to get married and have kids? Like, these thoughts were kind of running through my head. And it's like, I had to be reminded that life is not my own anymore.
Yeah.
It's not my own.
Yeah.
I handed it over to God for him to do what he wants to do with my life. And there came a time with Keltlin when I just, you know, my mom, I couldn't believe my mom. She was like, oh, Angie, would you adopt her? She reminds me so much of you when you were a little girl. And I'm thinking, Mom, come on, you're supposed to be the voice of reason here. And it wasn't until one day Keltlin and I were walking in the grocery store. It was just her and I together. And we were over in the dairy section. And out of nowhere, this woman just comes and she puts her hand on my shoulder and she kind of looks at both of us and she goes, boy, can't tell you two are related. And Keltlin and I kind of look at each other and giggle and smile. And I look up and the woman was gone. We couldn't see. I started walking down the aisle to see where she had gone and she was gone. She wasn't there. And I just remember thinking, okay, God, I hear what you're saying. I get it. And we went on and I adopted my third. And I mean, every one of my kids just has such an amazing story like that.
Yeah.
Where God really let me know that they were supposed to be with me.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that, it's really hard to deny that. And my life actually has become something in a million years. If you would have ever told me that I'd be a single mom having adopted 11 kids, I probably would have told you that you were crazy. I mean, really, in all honesty, but he's done exactly what he said. He's given me a life that I never could have imagined. And I'll always be thankful for that.
So you've adopted 11.
11,
How many total kiddos have you fostered?
So fostering, if I don't include my kids that I've adopted, I think it's been nearly 70, maybe 60, 70 kids. I think that I've fostered besides my kids through adoption.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That was a lot of times telling the worker we're taking a break. And then next thing I know, a kid's coming to our door. We're taking a break. And then,
these are short breaks is what I'm
actually
picking up on.
my fourth oldest daughter, Alexis, we had told them after I adopted Keltlin, I just said, we're taking a break. Like, we need a break. Don't call us. Like, I just need a break. I need to wrap my mind around like what's just happened to me the last few years. And one day I get a phone call and they said, hey, listen, we got this little girl. It's kind of a sticky situation. We're going towards a termination. She's with a foster family that wants to adopt her, but the foster family and the birth mom are kind of at odds a little bit. We just don't want it to be an issue. Can she come and stay with you 3 months tops? Like 3 months.
Right.
And then we're moving her back. We just want to get the termination.
Yeah.
We don't want there to be any problems. And I'm like, 3 months? They're like, 3 months. I said, okay. I convinced my kids. Okay, can we do 3 months? Kids, can we do 3 months? They're like, oh, okay, 3 months. That's it. So we get this little gal. And Alexis is 4 years old at that time. She walks in the door. And from the moment she walks in the door, my other 3 girls take over and they just are like, you want to come downstairs and play dress up with us? And her little eyes just light up. And next thing I know, they're playing together like they're long lost buddies, you know, like they've known each other forever. And one thing led to another. And when it came to it, Alexis pretty much, and she's still this way to this day, she digs her heels in and then there's no change in her mind. But she basically told the worker, nope, I want to stay with my sissies. when that 3 months was up, she's
Yeah.
like, no, I want to stay with my sissies. And the worker just said that because of Alexis's persistence and staying with our family, they ultimately made the choice to let her stay with us. And there was other things too there that are kind of a little on the personal side, but really led me to believe that God wanted her with us.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes those temporary ones are not really, it's not really all that temporary sometimes.
Yeah. I just have this image in my mind. I've listened to a message one time where it was like, you know, when pastors have good intentions, but they lie to you, you know, it's,
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
And it's like, well,
yeah, because I even went back to that worker after like we had gotten the call and they said, you know, hey, we've selected your family to adopt Alexis. And I called that worker up and I said, did you know this the whole time? Like, be honest with me.
For sure. Yeah.
Just tell me, like, did you plan this out? No, Angie, they had to try to convince me because I was convinced that we were set up, that we had been set up, but in the best of ways.
For sure. Yeah. I laugh about it because there's times I'm sure in my time where I've been like, oh, it's just this. And next thing you know, we're down the road much longer than 3 months. And
yes, for sure. Yeah.
So currently, how many kiddos do you have in the home and how many are like outside the home?
Okay, so right now I have my 3 oldest daughters. They are well on their way. They live on their own. My one daughter, she manages a coffee shop. My another daughter attends NDSU. She's a pharmacy technician at Sanford. She's going to school to become a pharmacist. My 3rd oldest daughter, Keltlin, she is a food service manager out at the new sports facility in South Fargo. And actually my 4th oldest, Alexis, that I was just talking about, she too works at Sanford as a pharmacy technician. And we get the keys to her new apartment on Thursday when she comes back from camp. She'll be moving out on her own and stuff. So I'm very proud of my girls. Yeah. They've really overcome a lot. And in our family, because there's such a significant difference between the age groups, these 4 that I just kind of talk about, they're kind of known as the OG, like the original 4. And from there, all the younger ones are, you know, there's such an age gap, obviously there. Yeah. So I'm so appreciative. I mean, God really did have a plan and how he laid it out. You know, when I got Josephine, she was 9 years old. And then Samantha and Keltlin were each 5 and Alexis was 4. And I'm so appreciative for the age gap because really those older girls are, I mean, they're so valuable to me when it comes to the younger ones. Yeah. So that's a lot of the reason why I'm able to do what I do with the younger ones is because I have them. Yeah. So, yeah, God has really done an amazing thing. You know, one story that I really kind of wanted to share with you, if it's okay, because, you know, I brought up that apartment fire and stuff, but after we adopted Alexis, there again, we get another call to take another little gal. And Alexis was really excited because it was a little girl that was close in age to her. Amelia was just a year older. And Amelia came and lived with us. And she was with us in our home for about 11 months. And then they had found family to take her and they were going to adopt her. And so that transition happened and we were very supportive of that. We knew that Amelia was it was a temporary situation. And we were excited when she went to live with her family. Well, after 11 months of living with her birth family, I had gotten a call one day asking if we would take Amelia back, that the state of Minnesota, for certain reasons, would not approve the adoption. And they asked if we would take her back into our home until something else was worked out with her. And in that moment, although selfishly, again, I maybe didn't want to, I couldn't help but feel like God wanted me to. And So I said yes, and she came back into our home. Almost immediately, another family was identified, some family friends that said that they would be open to adopting her. And so the visits began with them. But then after 2-3 months of her having visits with them, that ended up falling through, and we were kind of back to square one. And I just remember thinking, like, God, what's her plan? And then I started to question, are we supposed to keep her? But I didn't, I always hear a lot of people say, what are you going to adopt them all? And, God has put on my heart, each of my kids that I've adopted, I've really felt like I can't live without them.
Yeah.
And some kids, you just know when it's not meant to be forever. Is that kind of fair?
I
to say?
think that's fair. This is not a black and white.
Yeah.
There's you have to listen to the Lord, but also your family best.
Yes.
When a mom walks in and says, I think there's something wrong with my kid, like there's a sense of like, how do you just know?
Yeah.
And you can't explain that.
And I couldn't with my other kids.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember too, at that time, my mom, I know, said it a lot, but so did other custodians that we had, and saying that God will always get kids where they need to be.
Yeah.
And so I kind of relied on that and being like, I know we're not the one, but what kind of is her thing? And, ask the adoption agency, the program that I went through to adopt my kids, they swooped right in and immediately they, come out and they do a nice little photo of Amelia, and they do up a little bio of her, and they ask, what would you like in a family? And, Amelia, she's very specific. And I kind of had a chuckle at it that day because I thought, wow, like, okay, good luck finding a family. That's honestly, hey, I'm real, good luck with that. But, she is 7 years old. So, I think 7 years old. And she's saying, I want to live on a farm. I want sheep. I want this many cats, and I want to be in 4-H. And I'm thinking, okay, God, you're really going to have to work that out. Anyway, the adoption, worker was really excited because at that time they had a lot of families that were looking for a little girl Amelia's age. And, but when I started to inquire about the families, my heart kind of sank a little bit because these were families that had already had multiple kids, like, lots of kids in their home. I had 4 other daughters, and I knew that Amelia really needed a family that was one-on-one. And I felt, and I even expressed, hey, I know that you got these wonderful families, I'm sure, but I think that she just would be best suited in a family where she was the only child. And they listen, but ultimately they got to do with what they have. And so they kind of started the adoption search and, kind of looked into some families and stuff. And one night I really got to kind of just talking it out with the Lord. And, my fear, because, as foster parents, like sometimes, I don't know, I don't want to say that we want to like control everything, but sometimes we want to control everything.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
I don't know, maybe somebody who fosters listens to that and you kind of hear that. And I guess that was kind of me. And I just was like, God, there has to be somebody, just the right fit. Like Amelia had already gone through so much, and I just wanted her to be with the best family. I wanted this next move to be so successful, right? And so next thing I know, like God puts names on my heart of who else? Luke and Sandy, my apartment managers from all those years before that I met after our apartment fire, when it was just them and me that moved into this lonely building, all on our own. And this couple that I had befriended, and they weren't able to have children. And God put their name on my heart. Well, I hadn't talked to Sandy in years. It had been years. And, every once in a while, she'd maybe shoot me a message on Facebook and we'd kind of say, hi, and just kind of catch up a little bit. But that was kind of it. And God put their name on my heart to reach out to them. And I was like, no. no, they would think I'm crazy. I'm not doing that. And it kept on, and it was like relentless. Like God just would not, I mean, he kept putting it on my heart. And all the while, the process is still going on, with the adoption agency and all that. And finally, one night, it was probably about 9:30 at night, I just could not take it anymore. And I just kind of threw my hands up in the air and I said, okay, God, I'm going to do what you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
But then it's all in your hands. So I get on my computer and I type out this message to Sandy, and it was something along the lines, because I'm not going to do any convincing. I feel like if this is of God, then hey, you work out the details.
Yeah.
I just simply said, we have this little girl that's in our home. She's in need of a home. I don't know if you and Luke would ever consider adopting, but if it's something that you would be interested in, you can go on this website, see her picture, her little bio, and there you go. Hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah.
And it took me a second to push the send button. And I remember when I finally did, I pushed it, and automatically I got on the computer, I shut it all down, because I thought they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm crazy. They haven't talked to me in years. We don't know what's going on really in each other's lives. They're going to think I'm crazy. Well, the backside of that story is they did think I was crazy. Like Sandy read the message to her husband, and they did think I was crazy, and they laughed. They laughed about it. But what I didn't know was, Sandy had sent me a message then saying, hey, thanks for thinking about us. We got a good laugh out of it. I would have always probably been open to adopting, Sandy said, but Luke probably not so much. But thanks for thinking about us, la-di-da. I said, okay, God, if you're wanting to do something here, you better do something. Well, next thing I know, she's calling me and she's telling me something that just brings tears to my eyes. And she said that they had gone to bed one night. She thought Luke was asleep. And all of a sudden he says, I suppose she's going to want to go to college. And Sandy said, are you thinking about this? And he said, well, I don't know. We could maybe, she said, do you want to go look up her profile? Like we could at least do that. Yeah. Okay. So they go and look, and they see this picture of Amelia. And on there, it says that she wants to live on a farm. They live on a farm. Mm. She wants to have sheep. Luke raises sheep. She wants to be involved in 4-H. Luke has been involved in 4-H since he was 8 years old.
That's awesome.
And actually judges still to this day will judge 4-H competitions or whatever it is. I don't even know really much about it.
For sure.
Anyway, when she tells me this, I just thought that to me, Pastor Lucas, solidified my faith.
Yeah.
It solidified everything that I had ever thought about God. It made it so real to me that he could be that specific.
Yeah.
I was worried about Luke and Sandy laughing at me. I kind of laughed at God. Like when I heard Amelia's little long list of wants in a family, I chuckled. I was like Sarah,
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe this. So she said, who do we have to talk to? And again, I didn't want to step up. I didn't want to
For sure.
I didn't want to be driving the train. I thought, okay, if you're really serious about it, then you need to take the lead.
Yeah.
And so I told her who to call. Well, the next day I get a call from Sandy, and she says, hey, I called the adoption worker, and I just wanted to call and let you know that they kind of told us that they're only accepting families that have a completed home study. Thanks for thinking about us, but it doesn't sound like it's going to work out with Amelia. And I knew right there and then, I said, I'm on the phone with her and I say, Sandy, you don't understand. God put your name on my heart, yours and Luke's. I know how God works. If you're really serious about this, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. And she simply said, okay. And we ended it there. And she said, okay. They went, and they got got the paperwork for their home study. And next thing I know, I'm receiving a phone call from Amelia's adoption worker saying, we received their paperwork back faster than any other family we have ever worked with before. And I kind of chuckled about that. And anyway, they were able to get all their paperwork in. Long story short, I didn't know this. This was something that I kind of learned with Amelia, but when they look at identifying a family, the adoption worker themselves will take all the inquiries that they have received on a child. Now, mind you, they are lucky. This is what I've been told. If they get 7 to 8 families to inquire about a child. So they at least have an option, Yeah. With Amelia, they had 23 inquiries, 23 families that said they were willing to adopt her. From there, that list, they took the top 3. I was told that Luke and Sandy were in the top 3 out of all those families. From there, a short little bio of each of the top 3 families then is made up by the adoption worker, and that gets sent out to all the adoption workers within the office. And I believe what I was told was all the workers across the state of North Dakota, adoption workers, to try to really get a lot of people's feedback. Out of all the workers in the office and throughout the state of North Dakota, it was unanimous that Luke and Sandy should be her parents.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And can you believe the faith that they had to have had, because they inquired and they stepped forward for a child that they had never even laid eyes on face to face, had never met her. And so I believe it was February 13th, they ended up meeting her for the first time. And Pastor Lucas, I can't even tell you, it was as if they had known each other their whole lives. I had kind of told Sandy, I said, she can be a little shy around new people. Please don't take offense to it. And she said, no, we totally understand. They got there, and myself and the adoption worker, we just stepped back. Amelia sat on the couch. Luke and Sandy were on either side of her. Both Luke and Sandy had their arms wrapped around her on each side. Sandy had made up this beautiful photo album and said, this is your cousin. This is your grandma and grandpa. These are our animals. These are their names.
Yeah.
And Amelia was eating it up. I saw Amelia open up like I had never seen her open up before. And I'm thinking, who is this kid? Who is this kid sitting here? It was just as if the missing piece in their lives and in her life I put puzzles together. I told you I was working on that 1,000-piece puzzle the other night.
Yes, yeah.
There's nothing more satisfying than that last piece.
For sure.
Because you're like, wow, I didn't lose a piece. Here's the whole picture, right?
Especially with many kids running around.
Yeah, all the kids that I have, and everybody wants to do the puzzle with mom. But that's what it kind of felt like to me.
For sure.
And it was just meant to be.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And to me, that just really, it solidified everything. It was just such an amazing, amazing testimony. And it continues on, because let me say, Amelia is now 19 years old. Just a couple months ago, she came to Fargo, and she wanted to come hang out with me. She goes to college. She is involved in some Christian group that they have on campus. And she came and we sat and visited, and she told me all about a missions trip that she had just been on to Mexico. She was telling me about her relationship with God and how she's been sharing that with her parents, and how she's just on fire and wants to know more about this. And we held each other and we cried. And she looked at me and she said, Angie, I got everything I ever wanted. Isn't God so good?
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Pastor Lucas, come on. Every time I share this story, because I've already shared this with you, but every time I share the story, it's like I'm amazed all over again.
It reminds me of Gideon in the fleece, and part of me, I'm like, okay, man, we're going to put the Lord to the test here a little bit, I'm like, okay, how's, but yet the specific things that she placed down, and then, because she was 4 or 5 when
we got her, she got gosh, she was 7 when we got her. So I think when she went to Luke and Sandy, she was almost 9, maybe like 8 and a half.
So 10, 11 years
9.
later and just, it in many ways, it takes my mind a few minutes to catch up to what I just heard. Cause I'm like, wait, what? Like, so it's just kind of shocking, but yet remarkable.
But now does it kind of, like even as I think back on my life and like I said, that fire, something bad, you think, a fire, you're displaced from your home. Like that's bad. It was bad.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, why am I experiencing this setback? It wasn't a setback.
Yeah.
It was a set up.
Yeah.
God was setting the stage of what was to come. And I had no clue.
Yeah.
And boy, when it all started to come together, when all the pieces were put into place, I was so in awe of God that, wow, you could do that. And I could be a part of that.
Yeah.
I think that's what blew me away. Like me, the one that had done such horrible things like back in the day, like you used me like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
It is remarkable.
But he wasn't even done. He wasn't even done because, from there, then I was like really on fire. I'm like, okay, God, let's do this. What's next? What's next? You can use me if and God, the wonderful thing about him throughout this whole kind of journey of my life is that when I've needed times of rest, he's given me rest. And then I start getting a little antsy. Like, okay, I can't just sit like idly by, but that rest I have come to find is very important for my mental health, for my family, my kids that I've already committed to. Like, I need to make them the focus, them the priority. So the rest is really important, but I can't lie. I start to feel like a stirring in my heart when I feel like God's ready to start using me again.
Yeah.
And then, I had shared with you, obviously, the story of my grandma.
Yes. It is remarkable. So how many kiddos have you helped place in another home?
Well, it would have been Amelia then. And then there was another little guy that we had really temporary.
Okay.
And another family stepped in. And that was pretty remarkable too, because we had gotten asked to take this little guy just until they were able to find him an adoptive home. And that to me was so special because I didn't know this, but that there was some paperwork that needed to be done before this little guy, even though this family was chosen to take him, to adopt him. Until there was certain paperwork that was complete, he couldn't actually spend the night at their house.
Okay,
like they could come and take him all day long, but he had to sleep within my home until this paperwork was complete. So I could tell that the adoptive mom was really kind of struggling with that because once they were chosen, she wanted him.
For sure.
He was only 2 years old. He was just this little pumpkin. And so kind of in recognizing that, I said, hey, listen, I get up in the morning around 6:30. I'll get the coffee pot going in the morning. I'll unlock the door. You come on over. You walk right into our house as if it's your own. And you go get your son. And I want you to be the first face that he sees when he gets up. And you take care of him.
Yeah.
And so that's what would happen. Every morning I'd get up and I'd get the coffee pot going. And after she kind of got him all dressed and ready to go, we'd sit and visit. And a friendship really kind of happened from there. And then at night, she'd bring him home and she'd tuck him back in. And this kind of went on for a few weeks until they were able to take him. And that too, to me, was really special.
Yeah.
It was a really kind of special thing. We really bonded over that from mother to mother.
Yeah.
So,
well, a great way to serve the mom, I don't know many people who would do that or even think of that as an idea. In my mind, I'm like, I would have never thought of that. Like, hey, just come on over every morning. And how remarkable.
Every morning she would come and we'd sit. Well, I was the coffee drinker. She liked tea, mint tea with honey to be exact.
Okay.
And we found out that we kind of had a lot in common. But, I guess I've always one thing that has kind of stuck with me is that, these are God's children and we are to be stewards of their well-being. And so whatever that takes, even if it means my heart gets broken, because I'm going to sit here, I'm sharing maybe highlights with you. But I'm going to tell you the in between. My pillow has seen more tears than probably a cloud holds rain. Especially with the adoption of my last one. I've really kind of been put to the test there.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
Yeah.
But I don't in any way, I know like you had brought that up to me, like, it's not perfect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is not perfect at all.
Yeah. There's a lot of hard times. But, when you have those little breakthrough moments or these really special things that happen, it really puts it all into perspective and it makes it worth it. And I feel like, hey, if God can take my life and orchestrate it in such a way that even the pain and the bad that happened to me early on, if he can turn that into something good, then surely he can do that for the kids that we serve. Oh, yeah. And I want to be a part of that, Pastor Lucas. That's the thing. I want to be a part of it. When Amelia comes back and she tells me thank you, and because of my obedience to God, that she has the family that she deserves, it makes it all worth it. And I want to keep doing it again and again.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah. It's remarkable. It's cool. It's remarkable to hear
so
about
cool.
and to see. And
Yeah.
Well, so trying to choose the questions to ask because I have like 1,000 questions. But let's say somebody is listening and they're like, okay, like what do I go? Maybe they've never even thought about foster or adoption. They have no idea. They've heard terms they've never even heard before, respite and other things.
Yes.
So what would you recommend as hey, here's how you get in the game, so to speak. Here's a few ways to navigate going from knowing nothing to beginning a journey of what that may look like to begin to foster or adopt.
Okay. So within Fargo, we have 2 agencies. We have Nexus Path of North Dakota. That's who I've been licensed with for the last 20 years. Now, currently, I'm licensed through Cass County. So you can get licensed through your county or, in this instance, through Fargo, it's Nexus Path. And basically all it is finding a number, I do and inquiring, just simply saying, hey, I'd like to know more about, what I'd have to do to become a foster parent. I do know that on occasion, because I get emails about it, that they do have like inquiry meetings where they kind of set up. It's kind of like an open house type thing where, you can come and it's just somebody up there that kind of shares to a group of people. So it doesn't even have to be really individual, but more or less kind of like you just joining a group and somebody sitting in and talking. And that's kind of nice too, because sometimes I find that others will ask questions that maybe you haven't thought of, or maybe you have thought about, but you don't want to raise your hand to ask it.
And is it Nexus Path? I'm looking here, just looking it up. I'll put this in the show notes.
Yeah.
But family healing, Nexus.
You got
Nexus
it.
Path, family healing. Okay. I'll put that in the show notes. And I'm assuming, they obviously work with Cass County.
Yes.
You could just go through them as an agency, or you could just go directly through Cass County.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. That's right. The children that are served in each, from each agency, though, are way different. So in Nexus Path, and forgive me if I leave off the Nexus part. When I first got licensed, it was just Path, but now it's Nexus Path.
Okay.
But they serve older kids. Typically, there's a diagnosis that's associated with the child, and then the county. You would kind of be like almost like that first responder foster parent, like kids that are just immediately removed from their home. So each one looks very different.
Yeah. So these are only 2 options in Fargo
that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Okay. And it's not like every town has their own version of this. Larger cities. So there may only be a handful of like Nexus Path.
Yeah, Nexus Path is like state, that's all over.
Yep.
Yep. They have different offices throughout the state.
Okay.
Yep. So if you live somewhere else, yep, they could still be a point of reference.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, whatever county that you live into.
For sure.
So
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Yeah, in Texas, our experience, we were in Austin, Texas, so there's 2 million people, a lot of options. So we went with a Christian organization, but there were like 50 options, but we kind of chose the one that was like closest to us.
Yeah.
But as you know, they all correspond. Like
Yes.
when you were sharing about your mom making the phone calls, I remember the other end of that.
Yeah.
Where my wife calls me and says, "Hey, we just got a phone call from our agency.
Yeah.
And can we take these twins?" Okay, yes, ma'am, let's do it. And then I remember posting on Facebook, I'm like, I need 2 portable cribs. I forget what they're called now. I've been out of that game.
Pack and play.
Yes, there we go. Pack and play.
Lifesavers.
Yeah. So, and I remember going and I'm like, hey, we've got these twins showing up. I need 2 pack and plays.
Yeah, no screwdriver necessary.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm no time to assemble nothing.
Yes, that's right.
So I remember going and picking a couple of those up. And so anyway, I just could imagine, they're in their office and they're calling all these people. Yeah. And so they typically, to my understanding, no matter what organization, the county and the organizations, they're pulling from the same.
Yeah, because the county would be the ones who are actually the custodian over the child.
Yeah.
Where PATH is more like a resource kind of organization that supports the county worker and the foster family, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, that's helpful. Any other hacks or just tidbits of information that you would share for somebody just beginning to think like, okay, maybe this is us?
Yeah. Well, I will share this. Currently, at any given time in the United States, there is around 400,000 kids who are in the foster care system. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids.
That is a city twice the size of Fargo.
That's right. Oh my gosh. That's perspective there.
So we have 250 or something in our Metroplex. I forget.
Oh, I couldn't even tell you.
But yeah, that's.
But out of those 400,000 kids, roughly, there's over 100,000 kids who are legally freed right now to be adopted. And one of the saddest statistics that I'll give is that by the time a child reaches the age of 8, their chances of becoming adopted lessen by over 50%. I mean, isn't that crazy? I got my daughter Josephine at 9 years old, and I just, we are attached at the hip, that kid and I. And she's 29 years old now. I mean, I've had her for 20 years. There's so much parenting. There's so much love that is still, I mean, that to me is so sad. It's so disheartening. Yeah. And a lot of times with these older kids, first of all, they try really hard to keep siblings together. Yeah. Okay. That's a goal. If they can't be with the parents, they want to keep siblings together. Yeah. But oftentimes the older kids have a better chance of being adopted if they have a younger sibling with them. Yeah. It's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. I think, I wonder if part of that is maybe a lot of younger families, maybe.
A lot of younger families.
And having a younger child, there's, at least I think in our human minds, there's less issues.
Yes.
And that is not the case.
It's not the case.
Because we had 13-month-old twins and...
Yep. The trauma almost gets embedded.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever read a book? Somebody recommended it to us, a family who had fostered and adopted the Birth Order book.
No, I never have, but maybe you could share that with me because I'm a big on birth order. Yeah. Well,
and I don't remember all of the book, but a couple of the things that they recommended was, if you're looking, so we've got, I guess at the time we had Paisley and Maverick, and Paisley was 5 and Maverick was 2, something like that. So the book kind of recommended, hey, you don't want to disrupt the birth order of your current children. Now, if you don't have any kids, then this wouldn't really apply, I guess. Yeah. Or if you don't have any kids in the home, whatever. But so they recommended, hey, due to the birth order and just kind of how family dynamics are, they recommended, hey, don't adopt anybody or don't foster any older than your oldest.
Yes.
So not, so long term and the Lord's bigger than that, you know?
Yes.
So I wouldn't ever say that,
Yeah.
you know, this is something you have to do, but there was some wisdom in that. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where we were. And even if the Lord does, I was going to say churn our hearts, I'd say maybe churn my wife's heart, but nonetheless, we would probably, just try to not disrupt that as best we could. But if the Lord placed, you know, then we would do that, obedience to that more than we would some wisdom of a book. So,
but it's good just to kind of keep in mind, you know, and I've even felt that within our own family. Even now, I kind of had to laugh because now as I'm relicensed through the county, through PATH, it's always been like I've been licensed for 2, 3, 4 kids sometimes. If, you know, adoptions haven't gone through and we take in another one, I can get a variance, which means that you just get like permission to take on more than what you're kind of allowed. You have to get permission from kind of higher ups. Yeah. And now my license is, I had to chuckle because it's never looked like this before. I'm licensed for 1 child, age 0 to 2, because I've pretty much said, I want to keep my license, but all I have is a crib. Yeah. So if you can fit a child, like if you, you know, when we're ready for that, because now we are kind of on a break for a while.
For sure.
So, but anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's just something to kind of keep in mind because, and we kind of say that too. I think with our family, with all the kids that we have, we just kind of feel too that if we were to bring another one in, it would have to be younger than my youngest, just simply because, you know, we've kind of established that. But I like how you put that. You're not, you know, solely just kind of focused on that. Whatever God's will is, you allow that to be. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all the other questions.
But you know,
I
think you know, through my licensing agency, when they work on recruiting and stuff, they because you kind of brought up younger families, that type of thing. They really kind of do. They would encourage and they would actually kind of like empty nesters. And, you know, they always kind of said that with empty nesters, you've had that experience as a parent before. So maybe you're, you know, just having that additional just life experience too. Yeah. That I think would be really good, you know, to be a foster parent. Yeah. That just because you're older, you know. Yeah. There's a lot of foster parents that I can think of right off the top of my head that are in their 60s, 70 years old. So, I mean, you know.
I would agree. And, you know, in some ways it's like, okay, I can imagine the average late 50-year-old, you probably have more time and more money than you've ever had your entire life.
That's right. Yeah.
And now you don't have, I mean, there's a component of maybe your kiddos are in college or getting married and grandkids and all that sort of stuff. In my observation, I have seen a lot of selfishness.
Yeah, I think selfishness is the biggest barrier to really, and not even just to foster, but just in life and living our purpose in general, because it will require something of you. Yep. And sometimes that requirement, we're not willing to give up the comfortableness that we kind of live in life. Yeah. And let me tell you, I battled that. I mean, I think I've kind of said all throughout the way, my selfishness, I battled that more than anything. Yeah. Any fear of going into fostering, anything like that. And, you know, we got all these kids out there. Like I just said, 400,000 kids at any given, you know, year that we have in the foster care system, over 100,000 kids that are legally freed right now to be adopted. And, you know, if you're even thinking about this one thing, and I know this probably sounds so insane, but again, it's my heart for adoption, is there's a website that I go to. It's called adoptuskids.org. Okay. And on there, you can search children up for adoption. These are all children that are in the foster care system.
In the whole country?
Throughout the whole country. Okay. Throughout the whole United States that are up for legally freed for adoption. The majority of them are. Or, you know, it's probably heading that way, probably very close. But you can see pictures of the kids. You can read little bios on them. And, you know, you would think, well, you know, I've adopted my 11 kids. But I go on there every now and then, and I love looking through the kids. and saying their names. I'll go through, there's page after page after page of kids on there, and saying their name and just praying over these kids that God, they all have a purpose. God has a purpose and a plan for their lives too. And, boy, I'm so glad that people didn't give up on me at my worst times in life,
Amen.
And these kids need that too. So if you would go under Meet the Children.
Okay.
And then is there one that says search?
Search Adopt U.S. Kids.
Yep.
Okay.
So do search there. And then you can put in your preference on if you are looking for a little boy or little girl. You can do the number of children that you'd be willing to adopt, their ages. And then you can I just go for the search. I do whatever they have there.
And just leave it and then just hit search. Okay.
And then I just start looking through the families. Oh my gosh, look at, you have pulled up, what is there, 6 in that group?
Man. There's 14, 12, 11, 10, 8, 6.
Yes. And I scroll through and I will say their little names.
Yeah, man.
It just breaks my heart.
Well, it shows up as 3,000, just under 4,000 that are on this search.
And that's just, the kids from this search.
In Texas, the phrase was at risk or legal risk, meaning the parents had their rights had been terminated. So the only end goal is adoption or somebody to take them. And, it's,
and oftentimes it is like when the children can't be returned back home to their bio parents, or they can't go with a family member.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it is the foster parents who adopt the kids. And now, I asked my agency before I left, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I should say this. A lot of foster families, a lot of times that they're in need of foster families because the foster families have adopted and maybe they just don't have any more available space anymore. That's why they've kind of left. Well, then you need foster families to kind of come in and replenish that. Yeah. And, it's not just, and I'll kind of share my kind of personal journey, especially with my younger kids, for any family that maybe is saying, but, we do want younger. Yeah. Okay, well, my 4 kids were older, I guess, Josephine, like I said, was 9. But when I got my younger ones, my one daughter, Michelle, she was 2 years old when I got her. 4 months after getting her bio mom had another baby. And so we got my daughter Ariel at 4 weeks old. She was born premature. And so when she got out of the hospital and we were able to get all the paperwork done, she was 4 weeks old when we got her. A couple years after that, bio mom had another baby, my son Aiden. We got him at 5 weeks old. Same thing. He was born premature. He kind of had some respiratory issues, and we got him. And then in 2022, we were surprised again with another baby, my baby girl Mariah, who's now 3.5 years old. And so for me, I've kind of always told them, I don't know how much more we're looking at adopting, if it were to be a birth sibling, that's something I could just never say no to. Yeah. I never want my kids searching for a sibling. Yeah. That's just me personally. Yeah. So I'm pushing 50, but that is something I would just never, my heart could never say no to. And so I know maybe you're thinking, oh, well, we want little ones. We're young, that type of thing. You never know what God has in store for you as far as a family. I mean, I would have never imagined that, I would have 3 newborn babies that I got to mother, and be there at the beginning of their life for and stuff. But you're right. And in no way kind of, takes away. There's definitely, my kids had different things in their system that were harmful to them. And so there's definitely things. It's not like you're getting, like, I don't know, I say my air quotes, but you're not getting a perfect, but they still need love. They still need somebody to care for them. They still need a family.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we have lots of families.
We have lots of families.
I
could probably name 30 students off the top of my head who are adopted.
And I love that.
In our youth ministry.
And I love that.
And I could name, a dozen or so who are juniors, seniors in high school.
Yeah.
and some even a little younger. And there is that, like, I wanted my biological mom, my biological dad, like that hunger and search for those answers.
Yes.
And so I could see the heart behind any sibling. In my mind, I'm thinking too, if I've already adopted, this child, and then there's a sibling from birth mom, in my mind, I'm like, that was mine.
Yes.
I could see why
that's exactly
that
what
desire,
I say.
because
Yes.
I've seen that.
Yep.
I've had many of counseling appointments with students, and they are wrestling through.
Yeah.
Well, I love my adopted parents, but I want to know. I've got questions. And
they want to see who they look like.
Yeah.
And are you kind of leading in? Because that is the perfect lead way into the story with my.
I would love for you to share that story.
You would like it?
I would love, if you're okay with.
It's kind of perfect right now.
Yeah.
Because my daughter Samantha had that same feeling. She wanted to know who she came from. She wanted to know more about her birth family. And so in 2020, when we're right at the beginning of COVID and we're all at home in our houses, and mind you, like, I would get on these Zoom share and support groups that I had to have for my licensing, and all these families I would hear, oh, this is horrible. We're stuck inside, blah, blah, blah. And I would kind of just sheepishly say, we're kind of loving it over here. Like, I just love being at home with my kids, and like, we have to be here. Like, I'm sorry, but I know I'm probably the only one that loves this, but I loved having all my kids at home, and we put all these puzzles together, and it was just a dream. Okay. I'm sorry for anybody that was really kind of going through a tough time, but we were kind of loving it as a family.
Yeah.
And I feel like we kind of needed it. That was my rest time. And so my daughter, who was in her 20s at that time, she came to me and she said, Mom, I'd really like to do my DNA testing. And, I said, well, Samantha, I'll support you in that if that's something that you want to do. And so my other daughter, she was 17 years old then, and she kind of chimed in and she said, hey, I'd like to do that too. And so I said, well, whatever you girls want to do, I'm fine with that. So they send off for the tests. And the day that they got the tests, I kind of am looking over things, and I'm kind of reading the package and the instructions and all of that. And I notice on there that it says, if you're not 18, you need to have parents' permission. Well, then something kind of clicked in my head, and I thought, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't be doing something like this until you're an adult. You don't need my permission. I don't know. It just kind of gave me some pause, and I was hesitant about Keltlyn doing it. And so she said, that's fine, Mom. If you don't feel comfortable with it, I won't do it. And then I felt bad because I thought, gosh, what a gem you are. Like, And I said, well, how about this, Keltlyn? I'll pay you for it. I'll do the test, and then it's not a waste. And then when you turn 18, I said, I'll feel so much better about it. She said, Mom, it's not a big deal. That's fine. I don't care. She said, I didn't really care if I did it or not. Yeah. Meanwhile, in the meantime, Samantha really did want to do it. And she really kind of, wanted some answers that she had kind of been looking for. So her and I go and do this test. And I will be the first to tell you, if it had not been for my kids being adopted and searching this out, this is not something I would have ever have done. But immediately after taking the test, I thought, God, you're going to do something here, aren't you? It was already kind of in my head because I just thought this is not something I would have done if not for my children. Yeah. And so we go and take the test, and it did say on there that it would take a few weeks to kind of get results back. And in the meantime, I'm telling my family, because that same stirring that I kind of got with Amelia was happening again. And I told my family, I just feel like something's going to happen here. Like, I'm going to find out something. Maybe my folks were a little scared about that. I don't know. My dad, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, so I just kind of felt that, like, I'm going to find something out. Well, one night I had gone to bed. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And I thought, I'm just going to get on my computer real quick. I'm just going to go see if I got the results. So I jump up, and sure enough, I got the results, and I'm so excited. I'm looking through things. I go and get Samantha, and I have her come up, and we're kind of looking at it together. And And I noticed that it kind of had lists on there people that you shared DNA with. And I noticed that there was somebody on there that I had shared a lot of DNA with, but that I never knew. And I thought, that's so odd. Like, how could I not know this person and we share so much DNA together? And so I began to kind of look, and I looked under his Facebook profile and I look it up, and I see this man's face, but I also see my grandma's face within him. And the more I start to kind of investigate things, I'm thinking, what is going on here? I'm trying to make sense of what I just found.
Yeah.
Well, after kind of visiting with my dad, I had brought it to the attention of my dad, and we kind of talked about it. And he said, Angie, if there was something kind of with Mom, my grandma, if she would have wanted us to know something, she would have told us, and maybe, we don't say anything.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get it off of my heart again. And I said, well, what would you think if I maybe just reached out to him? And my dad seemed to be okay with that. So one Sunday after church, I go home and I just simply send him a message, and I said, hi, my name is Angela. I recently did my DNA testing and I saw that we're a really close match. Just wondering how you're related to the family. And from there, what I didn't know on the other end of it was that the man I was related to, his wife said, just tell her the truth. Just speak the truth. Because he's like, what do I say? When he got the message, I didn't know this until later, but she said, just tell her the truth. And so he responds back and he said, well, from what I'm able to find, my mother's name was Idona, and I was given up for adoption 73 years ago. I was born in 1947. And he started telling me about his life. And I responded back. I said, that's my grandma. And I was just with her last night. By that time, my grandma was in her 90s. She was about 96 years old. And she wasn't able to care for herself anymore. So us family members, especially us granddaughters, were taking turns staying with her every night. And Saturday night was my night with her. And we got to kind of know each other through text messages and talking about other things, just about who he was as a person. And I shared with him my family and how I had adopted, and he was just amazed because he too had adopted. He had adopted his son, didn't have any biological children, and he had adopted. And crazy enough, we had the same birth date. And my birthday is April 15th. His different year. For sure. Much different year. For sure, yeah. But I thought that was so unique and so special. And ultimately, I got up the courage and really prayed about it to approach my grandma. And the night that I kind of did with her, I had said, Grandma, I told you that I did my DNA and I was closely matched to somebody. Do you know anybody that might have been adopted in our family? And she looks at me and she said, you wait right here. I want to show you something. And in one of our conversations that my uncle and I had together, he had shared with me that a letter was wrote to my grandma, just asking for any medical history, and that if she did want to ever have a relationship with him, that he would be open to that. So he had told me about this letter. And when my grandma got up from the table, I watched her walk into her room and she started wrestling through this drawer. And she grabbed something and she started walking out, and she hands me this perfect envelope dated from 1996. And she said, here, I want you to read this. I'm going to go into the bathroom. I want you to read this. And she just didn't want to be there as I read it. For sure. And I grabbed the envelope, and when I looked down, I saw my uncle's name on the outside of the letter and on the return address. And I just instantly broke down crying. And a couple of minutes later, my grandma comes out and she says, did you read it? And I shook my head no. And I said, no, Grandma, I didn't. She said, why? I said to her, I already know what it says. Yeah. And she looks at me kind of quizzical and she said, did I already tell you? And I said, no, Doug did. I said, I've been talking to him, Grandma. And she just put her hand over her mouth and she said, my son, he's alive. I said, yes, Grandma, he's alive.
Yeah.
And I said, he wants to meet you. And she said, he wants to meet me. I said, yes, he does. He wants to meet you right away. She said, I've thought about him every day. She was 96 years old. She thought about him every day. And she kept that letter so perfect. It looked like it could have just been sent in the mail that day.
Yeah.
It was so perfect. And from there, I contacted Doug and told him that everybody wanted to meet him, that my grandma revealed to kind of us all that her first child she had given up for adoption.
Yeah.
And kind of unknown to Doug and to all of us, he was a full biological brother. So he was adopted into a family where he was the only child.
Okay.
And all of his cousins were all much older than him. So he kind of just grew up on his own. And he was flabbergasted that he had 6 full brothers.
Yeah.
And he just kind of got adopted into our whole family. We met him. It was as if we had known each other forever. My grandma, the day that she met him, she bought a new dress. She got her hair done. She fixed her makeup and she just looked beautiful. And she was so excited to meet her son. And he went in and he got down on his knee and he held her hand and he said, that he didn't want her to feel badly about anything, that he loved her. They shared the sweet just time together. He held her hand the entire time. They just stared at each other. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. I mean, and I thought I had been a part of some pretty great things.
Yes, right? I would agree.
So this was pretty amazing. And ultimately, my Uncle Doug got to be with my grandma the last year of her life. My grandma had always had, I don't know if fear is the word, but just some anxiousness about going to be with the Lord. She had a strong faith, but there was just, and I think she needed the peace of this for her to be able to go to be with the Lord. And he honored that with her.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was so awesome. So they got to spend the last year of their life. But what I even think is a bigger extension to that is that after my grandma passed away, he had 6 brothers that he really was able to have a relationship with. And they got to be there with him when my uncle passed away, April 10th of this year. He went home to be with the Lord, and my mom and my other aunt and my dad and his brothers all got to be a witness to him and shared about Jesus with him, asked him if he wanted the Lord to be a savior. And I just think, isn't God so incredible?
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, that's
Pastor
awesome.
Lucas, that's what it's all about.
It is remarkable.
And our purpose in life will always be connected to others. God will never give us a purpose that only benefits us. That's
Amen.
why it's so important that we just give our lives to the Lord, because he can do such amazing things. I never would have dreamt this in all my life.
Yeah.
And it's not like the story, like my grandma kept it a secret. It just was something she never talked about. And I suppose she never dreamt in a million years that at the end of her life, or last year, that she'd ever be reunited with her son. And I believe she had accepted that. But you know what? She got to experience. She got to experience God's faithfulness. He is so faithful.
Yeah.
To those who believe and put their trust and their faith in him.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's incredible to be a part of. It's incredible to experience it. And it's incredible all around. Yeah. And who wouldn't want more of that once you get it? Who wouldn't want more?
Yeah.
It's almost like addictive, And even then, I still say, God, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. What do you want to do next? Get me ready. Prepare my heart. Show me what you need to show me, because I want to do it again.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I know he will.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is so awesome.
The picture of redemption and
and completeness, and just kind of bringing it all together and putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah. Had your grandma read the letter, or was the letter closed?
She had read the letter.
Okay, she had read the letter. Okay.
She had read the letter, and due to kind of circumstances at that time, she had said that she had tried to find him along the way. But because of circumstances, and it was a different generation, a different time. We didn't have technology like we do now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a lot of things that kind of kept her from moving towards that.
Yeah.
But, whether you're 96 and it had been 73 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy.
God will find a way. God will find a way. And, one thing I really want to share is, because I shared this with you when we first talked, but years ago, I had a pastor that said, we are in the sweet spot of life when the core of who we are is being used daily to glorify God.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I always want to be. I just always want to be sitting right there. And if I ever start to go astray, Lord, bring me back. Because I'm going to remember these moments and remember these times when God was so faithful, and I'm going to want it. I'm going to want it again. Even if I get led astray a little bit, I'm always going to want to come back.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
It is.
Pastor Lucas. It's pretty amazing.
It is an amazing story. It is remarkable. Praise God.
And I thank you for letting me share it, because, I sit in church and I listen to I hear, even on the way over here, I kind of have some hesitancy about sharing, I'm sharing personal things. I love my children and I don't ever want to share anything that would hurt them or make them vulnerable. I love my family but you know what? When God has done something so amazing, we should share. It encourages, it inspires others to want that same thing too. And I hope that's what my story does, because it's not about me. Please don't try to be like me. Go find your own story and then share it so I can be inspired by you. That's what I think, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's a great perspective. I think it's wise to, have a sense of desire to honor your kids, and what you share. I have to think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of things about a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I always have to make sure I filter to honor them well, and not,
because it's a big responsibility, you never want to hurt somebody else. And because, I always tell my kids, there are parts of our story that I've asked my adult children, if I could share. And even with sharing Amelia's story today, I texted her last night and I reached out.
Yeah.
And even though I knew what the answer was going to be,
for sure,
I still needed to ask permission of that.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I just want to be respectful of all aspects.
Yeah. And, it's your story, and the way that God has used you, but yet each of your kiddos have it. They're part of the story.
Yes.
And so the story will, in many ways for them, it'll be different because of, your obedience to the Lord and desire to, raise them and care for them and love them. And so their childhood and their growing up years, it looks a lot different.
Yes.
And so, but yet they all have their own story.
And that's what I'm most excited about. I sit and think about what I know, what I've experienced, but I'm excited to hopefully live to be the age of my grandma. And I can look at my kids and see all that they've done. Will they adopt? What will God do in their life? How will they use them because of my obedience? I think a lot of times my kids, I kind of have to laugh. And I just told somebody the other day, I said, wow, you share our story more than I share our story, because Samantha will tell me, Mom, I share with people you adopting all these kids and they just can't believe it. And I think, if it's that special to my kids, then I should be sharing too.
Yeah.
Because it's not to say, look at me. It's to say, look at what God has done through me. And that I just want to encourage others to be doing that as well.
Yeah.
Because he needs us. You came to work today, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were hired at this job because they needed you. There was work that needed to be done. And same with our purpose in life. God calls us because he needs somebody there to do that work. And that's kind of what I feel about all of this.
Yeah.
I'm needed.
Yeah.
And so I got to show up,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So,
Well, thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
thanks for letting me, Pastor Lucas,
Oh,
really.
yes. And I'm encouraged, and I know many others will be encouraged. And, even with me learning more of your story, just eager to, I've always been not shocked, but I'm like, man, we have a lot of adopted kids
Yeah.
in our church. I'm like, holy smokes. Like,
Yeah.
and even with you sharing like your older daughters when they were late high school and their desire to learn like who their, biological family, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. I've had the same conversation with grown men
Yeah.
who were adopted and they have a wife and multiple kids, and they're still like, man, I want to know those things. And so, so I've been grateful for how it's an area that the church, I think, has desired to care and reach the lost and care for kids and all of those things. And not everybody's doing that, but I know hundreds in our
But
church
that's
who do
God's
that.
family.
So
We're all adopted into Christ.
Yeah.
And when we can rally around those and do that here on earth, when that's the family, when you accept Christ, you're adopted into his family.
That's
so,
exactly right.
If you're a believer, you're adopted.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And I can see where that, they would want to, they'd want to have some knowledge. And I think sometimes it's not so you could set out to have a relationship maybe with your birth family unless it's healthy.
Yeah.
But sometimes just needing that closure when your mind is kind of developed enough, when you can really understand the scope of what you went through.
Yeah.
I think maybe, everybody needs that closure in their life.
For sure.
And I pray that those families get that.
Yeah.
Because it can be really a hard struggle, kind of coming to terms with all of that. But, like I just said to my daughter the other day, because her birth family reaches out to her, and I said, you know what, Keltlin, God must have really had a purpose for you, that he kind of took you out of that situation. And, and she said to me, I love you so much, Mom. Thank you. Yeah. She needs to hear that God has a purpose and a plan for her. Yeah. It might have been different and she couldn't be with her birth mom. But, one thing that I've kind of seen through this journey is the generations of brokenness. And I don't want my children to be broken. Yeah. I want them to be healed so they can go on and do great things for the Lord. And that's really what it's about. It's about healing, not that you forget. Yeah. Not that you need to go and have a relationship, but that you get to a place where God can heal you so then you can go on to use those experiences to help others.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Without a doubt.
Right?
And we see when folks don't, process through or deal with the things that they've had in their past, and then it can creep back up and it causes, generational issues.
Generational.
Can't just stuff it in a can and move on.
No, you can't.
So
you need to find a way. And God is the ultimate healer.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate healer. And, another big reason why I feel like it's important to share my story is because one thing that I've noticed too through the foster care system is that we can put counselors in place. We can do all these different things to kind of help the kids cope with the trauma that they've been through, but they need Jesus.
That's exactly right.
A lot of the kids that have come into our home, they don't even know how to pray.
Yeah.
They don't know who Jesus is. They have been exposed to the ways of the devil, but they don't know who Jesus is. They don't know that there's a God that loves them. They don't know what that means. And if I do nothing else while a child is in my home, that's the one thing that's the most important.
Yeah.
I teach them how to pray, to fold their hands, to bow their heads and close their eyes, and talk to the one that created them, that we're saying bedtime prayers, and that I'm reaffirming to them that God has a purpose and a plan for their life, and they're not defined by the trauma that they've gone through.
Amen.
You're not defined by that.
Yeah.
If anything, it's horrible and it breaks God's heart that your heart's been broken, but he can turn that around and use it for his good. We just have to be willing to allow that. Yeah. And then one more important thing for anybody kind of dealing with this stuff, maybe you've been in the foster care system, is you can love people, but not trust them. Mm. But love and trust with God go hand in hand. And he will prove that to you. I was not very trusting. I'm still not trusting in a lot of ways of people, but I trust the source. I trust God. And that really heals my heart. And that maybe, I can release some of that still.
Yeah.
It's very freeing. So anyway.
Yeah. No,
it's
awesome.
a tough ministry. That's what it is. It's a ministry, and it comes with a lot of tears. It comes with a lot of heartache, a lot of ups and downs and roller coasters of emotions when you're a foster parent. I'm sure even for the kids, I can't even imagine how they feel. But there's victory along the way. There's victory in Jesus.
Yes.
And we need to be reminded of it. That's why I say, if you like the church, a family, encourage them. I've never been so encouraged like I am when I walk into church. Just 2 Sundays ago, my kids and I, we sit in the coffee area because my kids have to go to the bathroom like 10, 15 times during an hour service. I don't know why.
And you just point right there. Go,
But this nice woman comes over. I tell my kids, okay, we're going to leave now. Everybody get up nicely, push your chairs into the table. We're going to walk out 2 by 2. That's kind of always our saying. Yeah. So to grab a hand, 2 by 2. And she comes over and she said, I just want to tell you that you have the nicest behaved group of kids I've ever seen. And you have no idea what that does to me as like a mom. It makes me feel so good.
Yeah.
And I'm just so appreciative for those times that people like come in to tell me that, because it really encourages me to keep going. Yeah. Because a lot of times with doing foster care, we can't go blab our situations to people.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Not even sometimes to our family because of confidentiality and the different things that we're kind of exposed to with our kids. Yeah. So just somebody coming up and saying that kind of refreshes me, and it helps keep me going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And
thank you.
To wrap up our time here, how can those listening be praying for you and your family?
You think about us, just pray.
Yeah.
I think prayer is always the beginning of everything. So I appreciate that. I tell many people who step in to do nice things for our family, just even people thinking about us, I'm so appreciative, because I just think in our busy world that we live in, sometimes just to stop and think of somebody and put thought into somebody is very that's a lot these days, just even something simple like that. So I'm just blessed to be a part of Bethel, and all the people that have encouraged me and my kids too, and rally around my kids. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And just that I keep kind of going forward, but I pray that for others as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the House on Fire podcast. Our prayer is that this podcast activates your home for Jesus. May the light of Christ burn bright through you and yours. Until next time.